will others say when you leave the room? Inquiring minds want to know, because your absence will either be celebrated or mourned, and that all depends on how you lead. What kind of leadership legacy are you building? Today, I'm going to be sharing 5 leadership lessons that have helped to shape the type of leader that I've become. And whether you're a seasoned leader or just getting started, these are going to matter to you because they're included in every leadership legacy. Welcome to Crossroads and Catalysts, the podcast with Shenita B. I am your host. This is where we discuss the thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at a crossroads can be the catalyst for change. Before we get started, I have a favor to ask, and what I would like for you to do is to leave me a 5-star review. This will help others to recognize that there is value in these podcasts as they attempt to find information that will help them on their own leadership journey. And so I appreciate that. So, jumping right on in, I just want to say that leadership is not about titles, it's not about having meetings and one-on-ones. Leadership is about people and the type of influence and impact that you have on them. And so when it all comes down to what it is that we should look for in our own leadership skill set, and in the leadership of others, it is how do we interact and how do we engage? Do these people have a vision and a strategy that I can get behind? And if I really didn't get behind it, if it didn't make sense to me, were they able to share information with me? Were they able to engage me to help me to get where they think that we should go, to help me to get the buy-in? And this is where you want to be in your leadership journey. You want to be able to engage people, to talk to them, to understand them and comprehend them, and take information from them and share information with them so that you can all move in the same direction. But it starts with you focusing on people and not yourself. And so that's why I wanted to share the 5 things that I've learned. And believe me, there are so many things that I've learned over the course of my career, and specifically during the time that I held leadership titles, uh, that you can't just distill it down into 5 things. But I think that these things are pretty important. So, number one, leadership is a lifelong progression. There is no finish line in leadership. It's not something that you check a list and you get a credential or some type of certification. It doesn't end there because you cannot outgrow growth. There's always something to be gained and learned. And which is why I think humility is so important, because humility helps to keep you teachable. And this is going to be really important as you continue on, because if you ever get to the point to where you think that there's no more for you to learn about leadership, you might not be in a good place, because that can never really happen. There's always something to be learned, and some skill set to be honed when it comes to leadership. So keep that in mind. Number 2, people follow trust, not titles. And this, I think, is really important because, again, you can have a title with the explicit authority that is accrued to that particular title, but people are more interested in whether or not they can trust you, whether or not they can talk to you, whether or not you engage with them and interact with them in a decent manner. That's what people are into. And I'm sure you've seen it maybe in your own experience, that there have been leaders in departments and maybe over whole organizations that people just really didn't respect because they didn't trust them. They didn't believe anything that came out of their mouths. And maybe they felt like they didn't have a reason to. Maybe they had seen too many things that had occurred under this person's leadership. Well, regardless, the title is not what makes you a leader. It is a name, it is a role, and there were some boxes that were checked that indicated that you were qualified, but you want to let people know that you are there for them. And it's not about the credentialing, okay? It's about people trusting you. Number 3, your leadership is always teaching, even in the silence. So people are always watching. They care about how you behave and not simply about what you say. And so this kind of lends credibility even to number 2 above that I just mentioned, which is about the trust. But leadership is always teaching something. So this is actually going to help to shape how other people define leadership. And I can think of experiences and observations that I've noted in the past where people have shared with me that they had never had a leader or a boss who was really kind to them or who had actually included them in decision making. Which I find very strange, but there are a lot of people who lead that way. They just drop the hammer and they say it's my way or the highway, and they kind of ruin it for everybody else. But you have the ability in your leadership to change people's perception of what leadership could and should look like. And I think that if you have a desire to be a leader, then you really have a responsibility to help to do that. Now, of course, cultures in different organizations, they do matter and they play a role in how some of these things take place, but you have the ability to shape how other people see leadership and even maybe change their mind and encourage them and inspire them to pursue leadership goals. Okay. So be intentional and model what it is that you want to see in other people. Number four, failure is not fatal, but it is foundational. And I've discussed this several times on the podcast. Failure is something that is necessary to our growth. If you are always winning, then there may be some pride issues that come along with that because you won't be used to success. You'll think that everything really pretty much happens at your own hand and that you're untouchable. But failure has a way of keeping us grounded, and that tends to be a good thing. And what it can do for us is it can sharpen our focus and it can help us to clarify what should be prioritized. And another thing about failure is it can actually lend to more engagement between you and your team because now you have something that you can really begin to rally around, to focus on, to determine what are the next steps. And again, this offers an opportunity for you to bring others in to help to stretch them too. So there's a lot that can be gained from a failure. It is not the end, so don't take it as such. And it doesn't have to be personal, so you don't have to see it as that either. But it's something that can actually move you to the next level because then you might begin to start to see things a little more clearly. Number five, people don't need perfect leaders, but they do need people who will show up and be present. So, presence is important because people want to know that you are actually in the room with them mentally and physically. They don't want to feel like they're just talking to the wall. So, show up for your people so that they know that you are there to support them and encourage them, provide them the feedback that they need, and interact with them in a meaningful way because that really is important. And then I'm going to say that this next thing is actually a bonus. But I think that everybody recognizes that this is extremely important because without this, you cannot have the other things. Character. Good character is a must. And all of us have seen ca- uh, leaders who maybe didn't demonstrate the type of character that is really something to be highlighted and exemplified. And then we've also seen other leaders who we wish that we had the type of character that they did, or we're looking to emulate some of the things about them into our own leadership style because it is so inspirational. Which again, all of the other things that I listed, it is very difficult to be a good leader and to leave a legacy of leadership, of good leadership, without having good character. Because, it stinks, for lack of a better word, when you're dealing with a leader who has demonstrated that they are people who cannot be trusted, that they are not forthright, that they are not forthcoming with information. It's just not a good place to be. And this is actually a good segue into a couple of the stories that I wanted to share with you because again, I've worked under a number of leaders, some good, some a little lackluster, and out of each of the interactions that I've had with the many leaders uh, that have been a part of the departments where I've served, I have gained something. And even if that gaining is, this is an example of what not to do or what not to follow, what not to emulate, it has still been helpful nonetheless. Because I can distinctly recall one of the leaders that I had. Um, this lady's name is Linda, and Linda was the accounting manager in the department where I was working. And I was working part time, and this was the first job that I had returned to after I had sold my business, or excuse me, not sold it, after I had closed down my business and gotten rid of everything. And I was working part-time, which was really good for my schedule because my daughter was young and I still wanted the flexibility to do carpool and still interact with her and her classroom and her teacher, whatever the case. And so this was actually a really good setup. Well, a position became available, and Linda encouraged me to apply for it. Well, because I knew that I was a part-time employee and I needed to remain part-time, I needed because of the flexibility that I needed, that was not an option for me. And it might sound a little odd today that that is the case, but almost 15 to 20 years ago, flexibility in work environments was not a priority. So it is a blessing today to have as many different type of work options available to people, based on the circumstances and their need, because that was not always the case when I was working in my younger years. So I declined to apply, and I shared why, and that was not enough for Linda. She encouraged me to apply, and she said, "We'll work it out." And I will tell you that she worked it out. I applied for that job. They gave me the job, and she blessed me to continue to work in a part-time capacity. Now, she never had to say anything to me about coming to work on time, staying longer when it was necessary, because there were times when we had month-end close, I knew, okay, I got to go pick up my daughter. I would go pick up my daughter. I would go back to work and my daughter would be sitting right next to me. You talk about somebody understanding your circumstances and being willing to work with you because you have demonstrated to them that you are capable, that you are competent, that you are responsible, and so many other things. Linda took the time to recognize that, and she was willing to work with me. And what that told me and what that showed me is that leaders can actually make a difference in your life. And I have remembered that all these years later, and I have attempted to be as considerate and caring as Linda was to me in my circumstances at that time. And that just really impressed me. And it gave me the ability to carry out what I thought was necessary for me to do at that time with a young daughter. And I just am so grateful for that opportunity. And it's possible. There are a lot of good leaders like Linda who possess these type of qualities, and they really care about the people who work under their leadership. And it is possible for you to do the same. Now, you flip that and look at the opposite end of the spectrum, and I've worked under a couple of different bosses who were not so nice. And not that they weren't nice or kind to me, but there were things that I observed in their behavior toward people who I reported to that really left a bad taste in my mouth. I can recall one executive, and this man, he worked out of state, but he would fly in at least once a month so that they could do uh, their roundtable meetings and have these monthly report outs. And when I tell you everybody knew that he was in the building, it was not because of his executive presence. It was because of his voice. You could hear this man yelling at the executives from down the hall. And this was a monthly recurrence. It was it was distracting, none, and to say the least, but it was also very awkward to observe and recognize that people who you report to, who were really good and decent people, that this is how they were being treated by the person to whom they reported. And I vowed that I would never treat another person like that. And I would certainly not treat a colleague or a team member like that and berate them in front of other people. And I'm sure he might have felt justified in treating them like that. Well, if you thought that they were doing such a terrible job, then really the course of action to do would have been to go through the process to either put them on performance plans or separate from the organization. But that's not what was happening. But I share that with you to say that there are always going to be the bad apples. There are always going to be those leaders who give leadership a bad name and they abuse their leadership authority. And that is definitely not a good thing. So you want to stay away from that aspect. If you think that you have to yell at people in order to get things done, the problem is not them, the problem is you. But there are ways to engage people and and work with them in order to help them to understand what it is that you need and what it is that you're not getting from them. It comes down to communication, and that's extremely important as well. And so this is so important because, again, like I said, because leadership does not require titles, there's influence that you have on other people that will leave an impression, an indelible impression upon them for years to come. And you may not always hear about how you impacted them, but it's a blessing when you do. And with that said, I'd like to share with you a note that a colleague, a former colleague of mine left for me when I took another position with a different department. And so, of course, I was leaving the department, and you expect to receive the cards that tell you, "Oh, we're going to miss you and congratulations, you deserve it." But this person she took the time to write a note to me. She did not report to me, so I had no authority over her whatsoever. But because we worked in the same department and I was typically the voice of reason within the department, I helped to keep things moving, and I was the one who would assist with conflict management and mediation when things arose within the department, that she saw me as a leader, which it touches my heart sincerely. And so I'm going to read this to you because you should know that people do care about how you treat them, and your leadership does matter. Congratulations on the next step of your journey. Obviously, it is well deserved. You've been nothing but a great leader since I've met you. Your poise and professionalism are something that I will always remember and admire you for. I will also remember your Rice Krispies. Thank you for always listening to me rant and giving me advice. I'm sure Andy appreciates it too. Your mentorship has been invaluable to me with my journey of personal growth. I hope this new job brings new adventure and hopefully not too many obstacles that will only strengthen you further. I cannot wait to see you with the C suite people one day. I hope our path crosses again in the future. Good luck and God bless. And this card means so much to me. And part of the reason why it means so much to me is because this young lady is no longer with us, because not long after I left the department, she found out that she had a form of cancer that had already progressed to a severe stage. And so within about 12 to 15 months of me leaving the department, she died. And it was so impactful to me. The relationship that I had built with her over the few years that I had worked with her, they mean a lot to me. But the fact that she would take the time to write a note to me to let me know the type of impression that I had made upon her, it showed me that the efforts that I made to do things well, to treat people well, to encourage them, to inspire them, to talk to them, that it mattered. And so I say that to tell you that it matters. And it doesn't matter, these do not have to be people of the same age group. This was an intergenerational department where I worked, and I had the respect of all of my colleagues and peers within this department. And this lady was proof of it. She didn't get to see me make it to the next step, but she was encouraging me and she was rooting for me and she was thankful for what I had offered to her. And I'm telling you that you have the ability to impact people in the same way. You can change the way they look at leadership, and you can help to set people up for success. But you have to be intentional and purposeful when you do so. So I hope that these 5 lessons, or I guess the 6 with the bonus, are helpful to you as you are attempting to map out what your leadership legacy is going to look like. It's going to take some time. There are going to be some things that come up that are going to test you and stretch you, but look at those as opportunities to be better rather than things to just slap you down, because how you respond is really what matters most. So we are at the end of our episode today, and I appreciate that you stuck with me so that we could discuss this because it is important. And I want you to remember to like, subscribe, share, follow on whatever platform that you're using to listen or watch. And remember, crossroads reveal who you are, catalysts shape who you become. Every decision matters. So make it count. Talk to you next week.